Welcome back to another episode of the Then Wait podcast. I haven't been doing this podcast in a while, so I've taken a little break. I've been releasing episodes, but taking a little break of doing it just because I get burnt out. And I have another podcast I've been doing that I get paid for sometimes, so I have to put that.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I can't just take a break from doing that one because I actually get a paycheck from that one. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation today. I have Fred Rutman, aka Dead Fred, and I am excited to hear this story about why they call him Dead Fred. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation today. So Fred, Dead Fred, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Lucas. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. Thank you for being on. Before I get to the Dead Fred thing, let me ask you where you're from.
I am in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, cool. I've never been to Toronto. My family's from Michigan, and that's the closest I've been to Toronto is Michigan, Detroit, and I think I went to a wedding close, but I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, it's an interesting city. It's very multicultural.
Okay.
So, you can find any representation of whatever in the city, but the city's a nightmare to get around in. So
yeah, it sounds like Atlanta, all the big cities here in the States. So do you come to the States on the side of town?
I haven't been there for a while. No.
Where have you been?
Since I started dying, I haven't been traveling.
Wow. So pre-dying, where have you traveled here in the States?
Vegas, LA, Long Beach, San Diego, Anaheim, Kansas City a whole bunch of times, Chicago,
now just
Fargo, Miami.
Wow. Are those were they work related or just places you wanted to visit?
They were mostly family and holiday stuff.
Okay, cool. I like that a lot. So pre-dying, I'm gonna ask you a couple pre-dying. What was your profession before pre-dying?
I was actually a professor in a business school, and I taught mostly marketing and finance.
Okay.
And but I was also one of those guys that whenever one of the other instructors dropped out, like a minute before the semester started, they'd say, "Fred, can you teach this?" So I probably ended up teaching like 15 or 18 different courses that, you sort of just make them up on the fly.
Wow. You enjoyed it. It sounds like it's kind of exciting to do that.
I love the teaching part, because it's more edutainment, right? It's the marking and the students complaining. Yeah. Don't like that at all.
I definitely understand that. So, Fred, talk to me about dying, because I want to ask you more questions, but I want to know about the dying part. Like, what's up with that?
Like what caused it, or what I experienced?
What caused it first, and then we're going to get to experiences and things like that.
What caused it was my heart kept stopping just randomly. So this started in the summer of 2009.
Okay.
That summer, I was clinically dead at least 20 times. So clinically dead means your heart has stopped and you haven't been breathing for at least 30 seconds. And there were times we knew it was much longer than that. And then that's most times when that would happen to me, if I was upright, I would collapse and hit my head on whatever was the hardest object in the immediate vicinity.
Wow.
So I ended up also with a ton of concussions and PTSD and all those other things that go along with it. And it really took them a good 4 or 5 months to figure out what was causing my heart to stop and get me a fix for it. So the fix worked for about 4 years, and then it didn't.
So what was the cause of your heart stop?
It's called, oh my gosh, third degree heart block, or a full AV block, atrial ventricle. And your heart has a whole bunch of electrical distribution systems in it that tell each chamber of the heart when to beat and when to not beat. And my distribution system just started dying. They all just started dying, and then they stopped producing signals. And so nothing was telling my heart to beat, which is kind of an important thing.
Wow. So take me, that's wow. I've never heard of that.
Well, wait till you're in your mid 70s. You'll hear about it a lot more.
Okay. Okay.
Because that's when it usually happens to men.
Now, how old were you when it started happening to you?
40.
Relatively still young. So you just said wait till you're in the 70s, but at 46,
Yeah.
like that, you're still young. So what was that emotional? How was your mental state with that going on? I know you had to be scared.
Yeah. I was scared, but to be honest, until about the 17th time that it happened, I didn't know I was dying. I thought I was just randomly passing out. But I had so many concussions and I was so battered that my brain just wasn't thinking straight. So I wasn't really focused on how scared I was. I'm Jewish, so I'm fairly religious, strong belief in God. So I just sort of leaned on that. But I had all sorts of problems. My depth perception went, I'd been learning Hebrew since kindergarten.
Okay.
So I could read it really well. And then one day in the hospital, my friends brought me my prayer book and I went to do my evening prayers. And I realized I didn't know how to read Hebrew anymore. It had knocked an entire language out of my brain. So, balance problems, speaking problems, whole ball of wax.
Wow. So, did that ever come back? You know how to speak Hebrew now, or is it still going?
I'm probably about to 65% of where I was.
Okay. So you just had to relearn it. It just never came back. You had to relearn it all.
Yeah, I had to relearn a whole bunch of things. I had to relearn balance, and most of the stuff I was teaching, I had to relearn. But on the upside, all that relearning helps your brain heal.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way. Now, how was being I know you had to be frustrated. Like, I know this and I have to relearn it all over again. Like, how frustrating is that? Like,
it was just part of the process. I'm sure I was frustrated, but I was so focusing on what's the healing going to be and how am I going to get myself back into the workforce that I really didn't focus on being frustrated. And I had a great therapist, so that was a big help as well.
Okay.
So that was part of it. If you ask my friends and family how frustrated I was, they'd probably say, "Oh yeah, he was frustrated." But to myself, I think I'm kind of oblivious to how much of a jerk I might have been during that time.
That makes sense. Because if you're going through a very traumatic thing, I guess you can't see how you're acting, but good excuse. I'm not saying justifying being rude, but it's a good excuse to be rude. Like, I'm literally over here dying. So have you done with this information? First of all, how does dying feel like? What do you like? How does that feel? And I don't know if I'm asking that question like not passing out, but like, do you feel anything when you're passed out? Or I'm curious. I don't even know if I'm asking that question right. But
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong way to ask that question. So everyone will feel something differently because my heart stopped and I had oxygen not going to my brain. Your body has all these backup systems to try and keep you alive. And what really happened is my brain felt like it was having an earthquake. Like it literally felt like my brain was rattling around in there. And then your vision, they say with fighter pilots when they're fighting the high G's, when they're in those power turns and they start to black out, that's what it was like visually. So I've got this earthquake going and, I've got my vision fading to black really quickly. And then at some point, my body's backup systems, thank God, kicked in. And then I came back to life. The dying part was easy. Like, you don't really have to do much to die.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to life part, your every system in your body, and remember, we're just made up of electricity and chemicals,
Mm-hmm.
and every system was overloaded trying to get me back online.
Mm.
And you could actually feel the electrical in your body. It's just like getting battered. And when you come to your senses, you're just breathing hard and you're sweating. And, it's like you went 12 rounds with Tyson.
Wow.
It's really unpleasant for, the few days after that happens.
I feel exhausted. So you learn what's going on, you figure out what's going on with your body. Like, how do you get that back? Like, how do you try to feel normal?
Well, a lot of therapy, a lot of prayer, a lot of learning, a lot of exercise. I used to be about 340 pounds,
Okay.
and now I'm probably about 220.
Okay.
Haven't gotten on the scale recently, but I think that's a pretty good guesstimate.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2018, I was introduced to something called intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
and it changed my life.
Okay.
It really, really did. It couldn't prevent some of my future deaths because that was technology related, not body function related.
Mm-hmm.
But it helped me lose a lot of weight. It basically resets your body, gets rid of your inflammation, gets your blood sugars normal, does a whole bunch of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to. You could finish.
I was a moderator in a Facebook group that had 350,000 members doing intermittent fasting. And, you get every question in the book and you see every result. And it's just miraculous how many people turn their lives around, from 60-year-old ladies who have gone through menopause can finally, get on the ground and play with their grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
to people's arthritis going away, to, women now able to get pregnant because they don't have, oh my gosh, some parts of my brain don't work. PCOS, because it helps reset your insulin levels. And that's usually one of the causes of PCOS.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen just across the board, thousands and thousands of people change their lives.
That's great. I mean, I don't know too much about intermittent fasting, but what I do know is, like, for me, I may stop eating food. Well, I stop eating around 8 o'clock. I try not to eat at the 8 p.m. And
Mhm.
when I'm really into my intermittent fasting, I don't really eat till about 12 noon the next day. And that has helped me out a lot because I'm in a wheelchair. I have sleep apnea. And I know when I lay in my bed and I'm like, I can't even breathe, and all I did was just lay down in my bed. I'm like, I got to do something. So
Mhm.
I do that, and I try to eat good. I don't deny myself anything, but I do say, no, I'm not going to eat this. Every once in a while, like if we're hanging out, yeah, I'm not going to deny myself if I'm hanging out with friends and we're. But for the most part, I like to stick to. Even now, like, I'm a bread eater. Like I had to stop eating bread. Like I love egg sandwiches for breakfast, so I just had to stop putting bread on there and just putting eggs and sausage or whatever I do and make it like that without the bread. So I'm trying to do things in my life and I'm being more serious about it. But I love to like to do intermittent fast because when I intermittent fast, actually makes you feel a lot better in life when I actually I'm on top of my game with the intermittent fasting.
So I had fairly bad sleep apnea. I was on a CPAP,
Mm-hmm.
and within 6 months of starting, I was also type 2 diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
So my sleep apnea went away.
Mm-hmm.
I no longer have to wear a CPAP.
Okay.
And my blood sugars were normal.
Okay.
Like just in 6 months.
Wow. Now I've had my CPAP since 2011. I don't know if I'm just so comfortable with sleeping with it now. Like I recently what's today? Thursday. Monday I had a sleep study to get another one. Had to go in. I could not sleep without that CPAP. Like I was sleepy, but I'm so used to having it, and I'm in an unfamiliar place, and so I think that I am not good without it. But to get me to the point where I wouldn't need it. That'd be great if I didn't have to use it.
Those testing rooms are just horrible. Like it's just so sterile and not what you're used to at all.
Yeah.
And then they say, and well, now it's 9 o'clock. You have to go to bed. I don't go to bed until 1 o'clock.
I'm a night owl, so about 1 o'clock, I was trying to sleep, and I had my book on. I was listening to gospel music. I was listening to audio books. I was listening to some things to kind of calm my brain down and things like that. And I was sleepy, but I just, because I am in an unfamiliar place, I could not go to sleep. I dozed off a little bit. I did enough where I qualified to come back to do the sleep study, which I have a CPAP, so I would have qualified anyway, even if I went to sleep. But I just wasn't asleep enough to actually qualify if I didn't fall asleep and doze off a couple times. So.
Do they still use those leads that they have to put on your face with putty?
Yep.
And all the wires and like, good grief, people! It's like 2025. Like, can't you make this digital and wireless? Like, that alone would make it so much easier for people to fall asleep.
Yes, because I had to ask the lady to come back, and she was a nice lady. She was one of the nicest ladies. She made my stay pleasant, and I think she's like, look, it's going to be a little stressful time. At least I could be as pleasant as possible. And she was. So I rolled over, and I was tangled up, and a couple of those on my head, they pulled off. So she came back in there, and she redid them, and she made sure I was not tangled up and things like that. She made, if the nurse was rude, it would have really made my time there unpleasant. But she's a very nice lady, and she did her job to make me feel as comfortable as possible. She really did. It's just I wasn't comfortable. But like I said, now how was your routine? I want to get back to this fasting. How was your routine with intermittent fasting?
So I have gone back to a system that worked really well for me before COVID. And so I do what's called a mealless Monday. So it's a longer fast. So I start Sunday night and I usually break my fast Tuesday afternoon. So 36, 38 hours.
Okay.
And then you eat normally on Tuesday for whatever you're going to eat and eat normal on Wednesday. And then I start another longer fast on Wednesday night till 2 or 3 on Friday afternoon.
Okay. And I haven't got to that point where I want to do longer. I may be able to do 24 hours. I know I can do, like I said, I could do 16 hours comfortable. I could probably push that to a 24-hour fast. But after that, I would have to probably gradually up that. And I probably could hit about 30 if I really worked at it. But like I said, I know I could do 16 hours, do that comfortable. And I could probably I could probably see, look, this time I'm going to go to 20 hours. Next time I'm like, let me try 22. I don't know, but I would work up to that. But I think it's cool because for me, I don't get a lot of exercise anyway. So being in the wheelchair, so like if I can skip meals, that's great and feel great. That's good. I have to try that one day.
I think you'd find a big difference between doing 16 hours and just 18 hours. So if I was coaching you and you haven't asked me for advice, so if you had asked me for advice, I would say just start to do, an 18-hour fast once or twice a week. Don't, jump into the deep end or whatever that term is. Just take it gradually and see how you feel and build up that way.
Okay. Yeah, I may have to try that because, like I said, I can do it 16 hours. That's easy for me now. I remember when I was like, I'm stressing out just doing 12 hours and waking up and then I was like, well, let me wait till noon to eat. And then sometimes 1, 2 o'clock I could do it. But so it just depends on what I got going on. If I'm busy and I'm distracted, yeah, I could. But if I'm just sitting around and don't have anything to do, yeah, I'm like, I'm hungry, I want to eat. And, but I think that's cool. I want to get to this before we get off here, but you've written a book, right?
Yes.
Talk to me a little.
Can I show my book?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
So it's The Summer I Died 20 Times.
Wow.
And the foreword on here is written by a woman named Jen Stevens.
Okay.
And she is my fasting guru.
Cool.
And she has a couple of books you might be interested in. So I can tell you when we're finished recording or off the air.
Okay. That's cool. So what made you want to write this book? Was it to inspire people that probably went through the same thing you did, or just to get the story out?
It had multiple reasons. I started off trying to journal because so much of my memory was gone that I wasn't sure if I was just creating things that happened to me or if these were actually things that happened to me in the hospital. Because I've had, I think, 13 heart procedures since 2009. And, they were all pretty traumatic. Most of them didn't go according to plan. So then my therapist wanted me to start journaling. So I tried that, and I got this hodgepodge of stories. Like, I remember this from like 2017, but then my next memory was like 2012. And then I'd have to ask my doctor, did this really happen? Or my sister, stuff like that. And it took a long time. And then eventually one of my friends said I should enter a short story contest. So I tried. I've done a lot of writing, but writing stories in a book are very different. And so I started trying to write the short story, and then I went way over their word limit. And then I just thought, well, why don't I just continue this and see where it goes? Maybe there is a book in it because people are interested in my story. So I want people to know, firstly, there's communities out there where people, this won't sound good, are dying to help you. They really, really are just genuinely nice people that will reach out and help you if you just give them the chance. And so it's partly to acknowledge those people, hopefully to inspire people who are going through whatever they're going through. It won't be the same as what I've gone through or what you're going through, but your mindset means so much.
So much, yeah. I always say I'm a big believer in communities. They get you through hard times, and when you feel alone, being in the community makes you not feel alone. That's big, and I'm a big opponent, I guess, not doing life alone. I love doing life with people. It's great. So like I always want people to get around other people and live life. It makes life. I don't care what nobody say. We were not meant to do life alone. We were not meant to be isolated by ourselves.
Absolutely.
Just wasn't. So you may need your alone time. You may have to recharge, but once you recharge, you're gonna want to be back around people. So
yeah. I'm one of those people who's both extroverted and introverted, and I suspect you're the same. Like when you're in a scenario, like you can just be, the shining star, but it really drains your social batteries, and it's the same for me. So often when I do a podcast, I have to go take a nap for like 2 hours. It's just that draining for me.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. That's why, like, I go and I get burnt out because I love talking to people sometimes, but like sometimes it's a bit sometimes getting on my laptop and talking, but it's funny because sometimes I'm like I don't want to do this, but like I get like get to have such amazing conversations with people that I'm like it makes it worth it for me. So I just enjoy it.
I feel that about Uber drivers too. Like I just have the most amazing conversations with Uber drivers. Like, can I tell you a story from yesterday?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't know how long you want this to go. So this guy's got the music cranked, and it's one of those I know the music, but I don't know the music, and it's just got this screaming guitar, and I thought this has got to be David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, but not something I've heard. But then it showed up on my phone, and it's a guy named Albert Collins, who's like a blues genius from Texas, and he died in 93. But it's just, so I asked the guy who was driving, like, why are you listening to this? Like, you're from East Africa.
Yeah.
He says, this is what I grew up on. I just find it amazing how music just transcends borders and politics and stuff like that. So this is a 60-year-old guy that's been listening to the blues in Eritrea.
And that's the beautiful thing about music. You're right about that. It transcends border, politics, race. It doesn't matter. Like, I can sit. So my favorite thing is I sit in the cigar lounge. I love cigars. That's my thing. But I get so much out of some of my opportunities in life I've got by sitting in a cigar lounge, and somebody's giving me an opportunity to work for them and do some stuff. So, like I said, my other podcast I do, it was an opportunity to make a little bit of money. It's a veteran-owned business, and I do a podcast for them. So
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I talk to veterans, and I just talk to veterans. It's something I enjoy to do, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I didn't go to that cigar lounge and make those relationships with people. So
everything happens for a reason.
Yes, but even if I don't agree, we can not agree on anything, but we may like music. We may like the same music because we can sit there and listen to music. And blues, I know a little bit about blues because the guy that worked there, this Mexican guy from Chicago, loved blues, and I sit in there and just listen to blues, ask him questions about it, and we just spoke cigars and with people and just enjoy it. It was just having a good time.
Yeah, I've got no musical talent.
I play.
My grandfather was good. My grandfather was a concert violinist, like classically trained in, the former Soviet Union and everything. But nothing got passed down to me.
Yeah. It'd be like that sometimes. I think, no, I think I'm the only one in my out of my siblings that play an instrument. There's a couple that can sing and stuff like that, but I just love music, and I played at churches, played on worship teams and things like that, and I just enjoyed it. But I think why I enjoyed it is because I have friends that play instruments, and that's why I really got into it. But if I didn't have friends that really were into music like that, I probably wouldn't be into it either. But it just unlocked it for me. Before we get off here, I want to talk about your podcast. You host a podcast as well, right?
Yes, I do. I actually have 3 podcasts.
Okay.
So one is called the Dead Man Walking Podcast, and I generally interview people who have overcome great adversity, or just people I think are wild. I guess this guy did overcome adversity. So I think he's from South Carolina. He's a former KKK.
Oh, wow.
And he was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and he was a vet, and he somehow got connected with this Muslim surgeon in Atlanta. And, they just connected, and he learned that not all Muslims are bad people. And, now he's got his own charitable whatever foundation, and he's helping people get their own lives back on track. Last time I talked to him, he said he was going to see Jelly Roll.
Wow. Okay.
And he thought he was going to be called on stage. I don't know if that happened, but Jelly Roll's overcome some adversity too.
Yeah, I'm a little familiar with him. By being in Tennessee, they love him here in Tennessee. So it's funny. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time when I learned about Jelly Roll. I seen him on a documentary on Netflix, and I forgot about him because he wasn't really known at that time, and I didn't know. And then when he got popular, I was like, he looks familiar. And I remember like that documentary I seen, and I was like, oh, that's him. Okay, but I don't know too much about Jelly Roll. He's not his type of music. Like if I'm around people that listen to it, I listen to it, and it's catchy, but it's not something I put on like in my everyday life. So I'm not familiar with him like that, but I know a couple of his songs though.
Yeah, now he's a WWE wrestler.
Oh wow, I did not know that. That's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. So you say you do two other.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is a small city, pretty isolated. But we've had a lot of people who became disproportionately successful coming from the city and making their mark other places. So, a guy who grew up in my neighborhood is now one of the top 5 entertainment lawyers in the world. He can make a call to anybody and get you connected. So I like interviewing those people and finding out their interesting story. And I'm also hosting a podcast for the new documentary channel.
Okay.
And I interview, they buy documentaries from filmmakers and producers, and I'll interview the actors or directors or producers or anybody affiliated with that. And I just find a lot of their stories fascinating. So I interviewed a lady. She made an entire documentary in Germany about this group of women that go to, I guess it's a ceramics class every couple of weeks, where they model clay, and they are only allowed to make one project. And you just won't be able to guess what the only thing they're allowed to mold.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So it's
what
men's penises.
Wow.
That's all they do.
Wow. Well, they must have a good imagination. I don't know. I mean, why? I mean, do they say why that's the only thing they're allowed to mold?
Everybody has their own different story, whether they love them or hate them or have fantasies or, they just want to throw it against the wall when it's finished, whatever. So she wasn't allowed to interview the individual people in the class, but she just interviewed the process and the lady that runs the class.
Okay. Well, sounds very interesting. Is this on TV? Is this on TV? I would like to actually see this.
It's a streaming service.
What is it called?
It's the documentary channel, which there's a whole bunch of channels called the documentary channel. So this was the original. They got successful. They sold it. And then they decided to reacquire it and are relaunching it. And I'm doing their podcasts.
Oh, cool. So, that's very fascinating. I would like to get into something like that. It'd be cool to do a podcast like that for myself. So I'm going to wind down here. And I, again, thank you for being on the show. Is there something else before we get off here that you want to tell the audience, encouragement or anything like that?
If they ever get a chance to read Man's Search for Meaning, it's an older book. It was written by Viktor Frankl. He was a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist. And to me, one of the things he sums up in his book is, if you have hope, you can overcome almost anything. And, that's from a guy who saw the worst of the worst of the worst. That's the message I try and pass along.
That's very good. I actually never heard of that, but I like that saying a lot. So, well, I thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure. I appreciate you having me on. You're doing good work.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.